Hey there. Tonight, we're heading somewhere very cold, very quiet, and very far away. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the world's salt mist on your cheeks, the moonlight flickering across a restless black sea. Out there, drifting like slow-moving mountains, are the icebergs, ancient, magnificent, and silently alive. They look peaceful, but each hides stories older than humanity itself. You probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in that freezing water, but you don't have to. You're here to float, to listen, to dream. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift into the frozen Atlantic night, where the air tastes faintly of iron and salt. Above you, the sky glows with low green ribbons, aurora, slipping through the cold like silk. The sea is strangely calm, like it knows you're here to rest. Then you hear it, a deep, hollow groan that echoes through the dark. It's the voice of an iceberg. Ice doesn't just sit in silence, it sings. As it shifts and fractures, trapped air bubbles pop, creating low moaning tones that travel for miles beneath the waves. Scientists call it cryogenic resonance. You just call it eerie and beautiful. Each crack sounds like a cathedral organ underwater. You can almost feel the vibrations through your chest. Somewhere nearby, another iceberg answers like whales speaking across the cold abyss. These sounds, recorded by hydrophones, reveal that icebergs have personalities. Some hum at steady frequencies, others wail unpredictably as they twist apart. You move closer, at least in imagination, and see the pale surface glistening under the moon. A faint mist clings to the air, where warm currents meet the cold wall of ice. You might notice the surface isn't pure white, but streaked with gray dust from distant volcanoes, and veins of frozen air bubbles shimmer like tiny galaxies. Every groan from the ice feels almost alive. Mainstream science tells you the sound is caused by thermal stress. Warm salt water eats at the base, the pressure shifts, and the ice cracks. But one quirky study from a polar research team once suggested the tones might even entrain sea mammals. Some seals seem drawn towards certain frequencies, like they're curious or comforted. Scientists still argue whether that's coincidence or communication. Your breath fogs out into the night. The stars blink like frost themselves, and you wonder how many secrets lie below this surface. You imagine the weight of it, the iceberg's mass pressing down 9 times larger beneath the water than what you can see. The ocean feels endless, but the iceberg is patient. It will drift for years, groaning, sighing, slowly melting, telling its story to whoever will listen. The stillness feels hypnotic. Even the waves move in slow motion here. You think about the journey of this frozen giant. Maybe it broke off from Greenland months ago, maybe longer. Every sound it makes is a memory of motion, a diary written in cracks. A soft wind brushes past your ears, and you can almost hear the whisper, "We've been here before you, and we'll be here after." Far below, sonar pings from passing research vessels bounce off the iceberg's hidden bulk. Scientists map it like explorers of another planet, tracing the submerged ridges and hollows. One fact always amazes them: if you could flip it upright, many icebergs would tower taller than skyscrapers. The tallest ever recorded reached nearly 168 feet above water, meaning over 1,500 feet hid beneath. That's a small mountain just quietly drifting. There's comfort in its slowness. In a world where everything rushes, this floating cathedral moves a few miles per day, following invisible currents. It doesn't care about deadlines or Wi-Fi or news. It simply exists. You let that thought anchor your breathing, in and out, matching the rhythm of waves slapping gently against the ice. You imagine brushing your gloved hand along the wall. The texture surprises you. It's not smooth, but sculpted ridged like old marble. Microscopic pockets of ancient air snap faintly when pressed. Each bubble is a relic from an atmosphere long gone sealed when woolly mammoths roamed and human language was barely forming. You can't help smiling. Who knew bedtime could smell faintly of prehistory? And yet, there's something mischievous about the iceberg, too. A random creak jolts through the night sharp enough to startle your calm heart for a second. Then you laugh softly to yourself. Even the most peaceful things groan when they stretch. As your eyes trace the shadows of the ice, you see a faint blue glow pulsing from within. It's not magic, it's physics. Compressed ancient ice filters light so efficiently that only the bluest wavelengths survive the journey through. It's like staring into the frozen memory of sunlight itself. You lean back in your imaginary boat, listening. Somewhere out there, whales sing beneath the ice. Their deep, drawn-out notes mingle with the crackling of frozen cliffs, a duet older than recorded music. You wonder if the whales think the ice is alive too. Maybe they do. Maybe in their language, the iceberg has a name. Your eyelids grow heavier. The rhythm of the sea becomes a lullaby. Every sound, every pop creak and sigh feels like another layer of thought peeling away. Soon there's only the gentle hum of Earth itself and you floating beside a drifting piece of eternity. You wake, or maybe you never quite slept, and the iceberg hasn't moved much. That's the strange thing about these frozen giants. They seem still, but they're always changing, melting from the bottom up, growing smaller even while they tower before you. Tonight you float closer, and for the first time, you realize that what you're staring at isn't just ice. It's time frozen in perfect order. Each translucent layer glinting in moonlight is a chapter in Earth's diary. Icebergs are born from glaciers, and glaciers are built by snow that fell hundreds, sometimes thousands of years ago. Every snowflake compressed into the next, squeezing out air until trapped. Tiny bubbles of atmosphere remain sealed forever. When researchers drill into ice cores, they pull up these bubbles like ancient postcards from the sky. Some samples hold air from 800,000 years ago, older than modern humans, older than language, older than music. You imagine one of those bubbles escaping as the iceberg sighs. Inside it, just a wisp of air, a breath from an ice age summer when mammoths waded through tall grass. You wonder if it smells different, that ancient air. Maybe sharper, cleaner, like frozen pine. Scientists say it carries less carbon dioxide and more purity, a ghostly reminder of what the world once was. The quiet around you is enormous. It feels like the entire planet is holding its breath, waiting for you to listen. The surface crackles occasionally, like the static of an old radio tuned to the frequency of time itself. You place your palm on the ice and imagine that deep below, the same layer continues tracing back through the centuries, each snowfall recording dust from volcanic eruptions, spores from forgotten forests, even ash from meteor impacts. Mainstream science confirms that trapped air and isotopes tell us how hot or cold Earth was, how salty the oceans became, how much sunlight reached the poles. But here's the quirky part. A few researchers argue that ice also preserves faint, chemical signatures of cosmic events, when solar flares burst or supernovas sprinkled Earth with radioactive dust. It sounds far-fetched, but traces of beryllium-10 in polar ice seem to rise right when ancient stars exploded. Scientists still argue whether that's coincidence or cosmic evidence. Either way, it makes you feel deliciously small. You smile to yourself. Somewhere inside this floating relic, a snowflake born when saber-toothed cats roamed is now melting into the Atlantic. You could dip your fingers in and literally touch prehistory. How often do you get to do that before bedtime? The iceberg shifts, slightly cracking like a polite yawn. A small piece tumbles into the sea with muffled splash, sending ripples out that rock your imaginary boat. The sound isn't loud, but it feels eternal. Each collapse is an exhale from the past, a release of trapped centuries. The sea swallows it, no fuss, no ceremony. And you can't help but think how temporary everything is. Even mountains of ice become memories eventually. A faint blue halo appears near the base, where melt water trickles out, and you lean forward to watch. Within that shimmering pool, you catch something unexpected, tiny pinpoints of green light. Not reflections, but life. Microscopic algae thrive inside melt pockets, feeding on nutrients from dust carried by winds long ago. Some biologists call them the gardeners of the ice, quietly photosynthesizing where almost nothing else survives. You chuckle softly. Even here in a world of silence and frostbite, life finds a way. The ocean doesn't know how to quit. The cold air brushes against your nose, sharp and pure. You picture ancient explorers seeing the same glow and thinking the ice was alive or possessed. To them, an iceberg wasn't a scientific marvel. It was a floating spirit. Early Arctic sailors wrote about hearing whispers in the fog, claiming the ice called their names. A few claimed it hummed in sleep, like some enormous creature dreaming beneath the sea. You can understand why. The low hum you hear now could be mistaken for breathing. It rises and falls with the waves. You lean your head back, eyes half closed, and let the sound blur into white noise. If someone told you that the entire Earth was snoring gently through the ocean, you would probably believe it. As your mind drifts, the line between you and the iceberg dissolves. You imagine what it feels like to be that ice, to have once been soft snow, then crushed under centuries of weight, then freed again, floating, melting, becoming sea. You're part of the cycle too, even if your timeline's shorter. Somewhere inside, pressure causes frozen cracks to flash with faint light, a phenomenon called triboluminescence. It's like a tiny spark trapped in darkness, energy released by stress. That's your mainstream fact for tonight. Stressed ice glows when it fractures. The ocean has its fireworks, show you just need patience to see it. And there's another odd theory whispered among glaciologists over too many cups of Arctic coffee, that certain low-frequency rumbles from calving icebergs can trigger mild hallucinations in humans if you listen long enough. No one's proven it, but you can't help feeling that dreamy, detached float creeping in as the hum continues. Scientists still argue whether those infrasound waves merely lull the brain or momentarily bend perception. Either way, you're blissfully drifting now. The iceberg cracks again, just once, and a deep note rolls through the water. You swear it sounds like a heartbeat. The aurora above flutters green, fading to violet. The sea rocks you gently back and forth, and the thought forms quietly. You're not watching the past. You're floating inside it. Every breath, every sound, every sparkle of ice is a fragment of everything that ever was. Your thoughts slow. The stars above smear into silver threads. The iceberg looms beside you, ancient and indifferent, yet strangely kind. It has seen all of this before. Storms, migrations, civilizations rising and falling. And it doesn't rush you. You're safe here for now in this frozen pause between centuries. You close your eyes, listening to air, older than humanity, hiss through tiny cracks, and you feel smaller, calmer, lighter. The ocean sighs again, and so do you. You open your eyes again, though maybe you never really close them, and the light has changed. The moon hangs lower now, painting the sea in streaks of silver and shadow. Somewhere far away, a thunderous crack echoes across the horizon. That's the birth cry of a new iceberg. You follow the sound in your mind, drifting north toward a glacier's edge. The air grows sharper, drier, and heavy with stillness. Ahead, a wall of ice towers over the bay, hundreds of feet tall, glimmering like crystal cliffs. It's midnight, but the sun never truly leaves these latitudes. It lingers just beneath the horizon, tinting the ice in gold and lavender. The silence before the break feels sacred, like standing in a cathedral just before the choir sings. Then, without warning, the glacier exhales. A deep rumble travels through the ground, and a slab of ice bigger than a skyscraper tears free and crashes into the sea. You can almost feel the vibration in your bones. The sound rolls for miles, bouncing off the fjord walls like slow thunder. A fountain of spray erupts skyward, followed by waves that spread out in patient rings. It's violent and calm all at once, destruction disguised as grace. This moment, called calving, is how icebergs are born. It's the glacier's way of shedding its weight, sending its frozen offspring to wander the world. Scientists have recorded these events using time-lapse cameras and seismic sensors, and each calving is unique, sometimes explosive, sometimes slow, like the Earth yawning. On average, Greenland loses around 280 billion tons of ice a year this way. That's enough to fill millions of Olympic swimming pools, or at least one very confused penguin's bathtub. You can't help but admire the physics of it. The ice that breaks off has been under crushing pressure for centuries, compressed from layers of snow until no air remains. When it meets the ocean, the temperature difference in salt content caused tiny fractures to expand like the crack of a glass dropped in hot water. It's raw power, but also patience. That ice spent 1,000 years moving inches at a time before it ever touched the sea. You watch as the newborn iceberg bobs in the water, shimmering in pale blue light. Steam rises where the cold meets the relatively warmer ocean. It looks alive like a creature blinking for the first time. Seabirds circle overhead, startled and curious. Somewhere beneath, fish scattered from the disturbance, while seals ride the outgoing waves like sleepy surfers. And there's a quiet beauty in the aftermath. The new iceberg drifts away from the glacier, its edges hissing softly as trapped gases escape. Those bubbles are from ancient snow-tiny capsules of air older than pyramids. Scientists say each pop can release molecules untouched by the atmosphere for 10,000 years. So yes, that faint fizzing you hear. That's Ice Age air making its way home. The thought makes you laugh softly. You're sitting in the world's oldest soda bath. Refreshing. But not everything here is peaceful. Sometimes a newly calved iceberg can flip massive and unpredictable. When the heavier, denser ice underneath suddenly rotates upward, it creates waves strong enough to overturn boats. The spectacle is brief, but astonishing, the world's slowest somersault glimmering with cascades of meltwater. Researchers call it rollover instability. You call it nature's version of dramatic flare. One mainstream fact for you: some calving events are so powerful, they register on earthquake monitors thousands of miles away. The planet literally feels their birth. And yet, for all our sensors and satellites, scientists still argue whether warming oceans or internal glacier stress is the main trigger. Every answer only deepens the mystery. The iceberg drifts, now breaking free of its origin. Its journey begins. You imagine it like a pilgrim floating away with quiet dignity, not knowing where it will end up. Maybe it will melt in the North Atlantic. Maybe it'll cross paths with shipping lanes. Maybe it will linger for decades before finally vanishing. Each has its own fate, shaped by winds and currents too vast to predict. You think about how some sailors once compared icebergs to lost souls, pieces of the earth set adrift. One old whaling log from 1856 describes an iceberg groaning like a wounded giant. And you can hear why. The sound of ice cracking, melting, reforming, it does sound like breathing, like pain, like memory. You lean against your invisible boat, watching the ripples fade. The air feels cleaner here, charged with something ancient and holy. You dip your hand into the near-freezing water, half expecting it to sting. But instead, it numbs instantly, like velvet frost. You pull it out, watching the droplets turn to mist. The iceberg looms nearby, blue veins glowing faintly as sunlight filters through the upper edge. It's easy to forget that this beauty is temporary. That's the paradox of icebergs. They're symbols of eternity and impermanence at once. They last decades, but are always melting, always changing. Their beauty exists because it can't stay. A few seals bark in the distance, their voices echoing against the walls of the fjord. You smile at the sound. It's oddly comforting, a reminder that life continues around all this frozen grandeur. Somewhere behind you, a gull screams, maybe offended that you didn't bring snacks. You whisper an apology to the air and settle deeper into the rhythm of the waves. The glacier behind you rumbles again, quieter this time. Another iceberg might be forming even now, ready to start its long drift. The cycle continues: birth, voyage, disappearance, over and over, older than memory, larger than time. As the sky dims again, you trace the horizon and notice faint reflections of pink and violet in the water. The aurora returns, curling like slow fire above the ice. It's the same dance that's been happening for millennia, the sky celebrating every newborn iceberg with a ribbon of light. You breathe in deeply, feeling the air sharpen your lungs. This is what the planet sounds like when it exhales, and somehow knowing that the ice will keep moving long after you're gone doesn't make you sad, it makes you still. Perfectly peacefully still. You're not sure how long you've been drifting, but now the iceberg before you has changed color. Deeper, richer, more surreal. The moonlight catches it just right, and suddenly the entire face of the ice glows electric blue. It's the kind of blue you can't find in paint or pixels, something that feels too pure for this world. You blink, convinced your eyes are tricking you. But no, it's real, and the ocean itself seems to hush around it. Why blue? You might think it's reflection, or maybe the ice has absorbed some mythical Arctic dye. The real answer, though, lies in physics. Ice absorbs longer wavelengths of light reds, oranges, yellows, and scatters only the shorter blue tones back toward your eyes. In ancient, compacted ice, where air bubbles have been squeezed out, light can travel deeper before bouncing back, creating that impossible luminous shade. What you're seeing is sunlight filtered through centuries. It's funny to think every time you see that glow, you're really looking at the color of patience. You drift closer, the blue deepening as the water darkens beneath you. The iceberg looks solid, but you know it's honeycombed with tunnels and hollow chambers places where trapped air whistles like flutes. Some divers call them frozen cathedrals, their walls translucent and alive with shifting light. But diving beneath an iceberg, that's not for the faint of heart. The whole thing could roll over without warning, and that would be the last lullaby you'd ever hear. Still, part of you wants to go inside, to see the world lit only by that strange oceanic glow, the walls glimmering like sapphire glass. You can almost imagine the temperature around -2 cold enough to sting your teeth if you smiled too wide. Inside, your breath would fog instantly, and every sound would echo softly like you were whispering into time itself. It's here in these glowing chambers that the iceberg holds its most delicate secret ice flowers. Not the kind that bloom on trees, but intricate crystal formations that grow in the thin films of meltwater, fractal and feathery. They appear when brine-laced water refreezes overnight, creating delicate petals that scientists sometimes call hoarfrost blossoms. You picture them sparkling under the dim blue light, and suddenly you understand why ancient sailors described icebergs as enchanted palaces. A scientist named Dr. Katharina Gross once said, "Each iceberg is a frozen poem written in light." You can't help but agree. The ridges, the refrozen cracks, the veins of trapped sediment, they all rhyme in their own strange language. You trail your fingers along the surface of your imagination again, feeling the glassy smoothness where the sea has polished the ice. A small bubble bursts, sending a gentle ping through the air. It's like the iceberg said hello. You smile back because why not? One mainstream fact: the purest blue ice on Earth is estimated to be over 15,000 years old. Found deep in the Antarctic, it's so compact that it bends light differently from newer ice, giving it that glowing, almost radioactive hue. But there's a weird twist. Some blue ice zones actually form above ground, where fierce winds erode newer snow and expose ancient layers beneath. In places like the Allen Hills of Antarctica, meteorites accumulate. They're preserved for eons because the blue ice acts like a cosmic catcher's mitt. So yes, when you look at a glowing iceberg, you might just be staring at a meteorite trap. Somewhere within that glittering wall could be a rock that fell from Mars. You chuckle quietly. The ocean always finds a way to mix the cosmic with the mundane. A grain of dust from space, frozen beside a bubble of mammoth breath. It's poetic chaos, like the universe keeps its lost and found drawer right here under the ice. Somewhere nearby, a small piece of the iceberg shears off. It tumbles into the water with a sound that's almost gentle. A soft sigh, like fabric tearing in slow motion. The splash sends a faint mist into the air, which freezes before it falls. Tiny ice crystals drift around you, sparkling in the low light. You reach out trying to catch one, but it melts before it lands. That's okay. Not everything is meant to stay. And then a sound, a low hum, almost a vibration through the hull of your mind. It's the iceberg itself again singing. Researchers once recorded these sounds and sped them up, revealing eerie tones like whale songs and ghostly bells. The low frequencies, inaudible to human ears, resonate through the ocean for miles. Scientists call them cryoseisms. You just call them haunting lullabies. There's a quirky fringe theory you once heard. Some claim those vibrations could subtly influence ocean currents, acting like rhythmic nudges across the sea floor. It's unproven, of course. Scientists still argue whether that's even possible, but it's a charming thought. A sleeping iceberg gently steering the tides, like a snoring giant turning in its dreams. You notice how calm everything feels now. The air is utterly still save for the faint whisper of moving ice. No wind, no birds, no waves crashing, just soft laps of water against the frozen monolith. The kind of quiet that swallows thought. Your mind drifts again. You imagine being microscopic, a dust particle trapped inside the ice, watching centuries pass in silence. You'd see nothing but faint blue light filtering through day after day, year after year. Entire civilizations would rise and fall before you even reach the surface. It sounds lonely, but strangely peaceful too. Time slows until it doesn't matter. You exhale a slow, warm cloud in the cold night air. The iceberg glows brighter for a moment, or maybe your eyes are just getting heavier. Somewhere in that deep blue light, you feel the story continuing, a tale still unfolding beneath the waves. And as your heartbeat syncs with the slow rhythm of the sea, you realize something simple yet profound. You've been staring at the same iceberg for hours, but it's never been the same twice. The sea beneath you darkens as dawn slides somewhere far below the horizon. Though here the difference between night and morning feels more like a gentle sigh than a change of light. You've been floating for so long beside these icy giants that you start to wonder, how much of them do you really see? The answer, as always, is humbling. Only about 10%. The other 90%, the true body of the iceberg, lurks below, hidden in the depths. What you see above the water is just the faintest whisper of its existence in the bright, photogenic tip. Beneath the surface lies a cathedral of ice arches, columns, smooth slopes that shimmer like glass under faint bioluminescent light. You lean over the edge of your invisible boat, peering down. The water is so clear that it almost feels like air, yet what lies beneath is too vast to grasp. You can see faint turquoise shapes swirling below, slow drifts of frozen walls, maybe 200 feet deep, maybe more. The light bends oddly, refracting through pockets of trapped air, creating a mirage of shifting shapes. You almost imagine faces looking back, calm, ancient, curious. One scientist once described icebergs as time made visible. You decide that below the surface, it's also time dreaming. And it's alive in its own quiet way. Microbes cling to its underside, feeding on minerals released as the ice melts. Each droplet carries nutrients, iron, silica, nitrogen, that drift into the surrounding sea, fertilizing plankton blooms. Whole ecosystems bloom around dying ice. From the smallest algae to krill to whales, the chain of life owes part of its rhythm to these floating relics. That's your mainstream fact tonight. Melting icebergs actually feed the ocean. They seed life with the very minerals locked within their frozen hearts. It's poetic, isn't it? Even in death they give back. A curious detail you might enjoy. Some researchers have discovered unique bacteria that live only on the underside of icebergs. These microbes survive on almost nothing but faint sunlight and trace gases, turning the ice into a microscopic city. A few fringe thinkers have even suggested that similar life could exist on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus. So yes, when you gaze into the blue shadows below, you're looking at a model for alien oceans. Scientists still argue whether these extremophiles are a coincidence or a clue to life beyond Earth. You smile. You didn't expect your bedtime story to drift into space, but that's the beauty of the ocean. It connects everything. A soft sound draws your attention, a deep, echoing crack, followed by a series of pops like fireworks muffled by water. It's the iceberg shifting its weight. Underwater microphones once captured those sounds, and the recordings resembled the bubbling laughter of ghosts. You picture it now, each bubble bursting like a giggle in the deep. Somewhere inside, ancient air pockets collapse, releasing sighs from long before humans built pyramids or power plants. You close your eyes and imagine the iceberg as a living being, a slow, dreaming whale made of crystal. Its heartbeat is the rhythmic creak of contracting ice, its breath, the bubbles rising softly to the surface. Above, gulls trace lazy circles. Below, a pair of seals glide like silver shadows, curious about your presence. You could swear one of them pauses to look up at you, as if to ask, "What are you doing?" in our bedtime story. The deeper you stare, the darker it gets. But even in that darkness, light dances tiny sparks, faint glimmers. Bioluminescent plankton drift near the base, painting slow constellations beneath the waterline. You're essentially watching the northern lights inverted, blooming under the sea. It's mesmerizing proof that even the coldest places still glow from within. You remember hearing once that explorers in the early 1900s used to fear what lay beneath the water more than what they could see. Their wooden ships creaked through ice fields, every groan of timber a reminder that one wrong turn could mean disaster. One sailor wrote, "The bergs are like gods, beautiful and indifferent." He wasn't wrong. You imagine what it must have felt like to stand at a ship's rail lantern, swinging, seeing only the shining crown of a frozen mountain, while knowing that a vast, invisible empire lurked below. The ocean is full of metaphors, but that one feels the most human of all. We only ever glimpse the smallest piece of truth. You lean back, letting the thought drift. Maybe that's why icebergs fascinate us so deeply. They're physical reminders of how much lies hidden beneath the surface of water, of time, of ourselves. Another low groan vibrates through the sea, long and slow, like a cello being tuned in the deep. The iceberg moves slightly, just enough for the blue glow to shift, and a new shadow emerges. Like a frozen archway, a gate into another world. You imagine what might live there if you could swim far enough. Strange, translucent fish, pale as glass, drifting among shimmering walls. A school of krill passes by, their movement faintly visible as ripples of silver dust. Above them, a larger shape, a humpback whale perhaps, glides near the submerged flank, brushing it gently with one fin. The sound of the contact is low, resonant, almost tender. You hold your breath. It's as if the whale is greeting the iceberg, acknowledging an old friend. And maybe it is. These two travelers, one alive, one not, have crossed paths countless times in history. For the whale, the ice brings food. For the iceberg, the whale brings music. They coexist like notes in the same quiet song. The sea swells softly beneath you. You feel it in your ribs, in your pulse, that slow rocking rhythm that always calms you. Somewhere deep below, the iceberg releases another bubble of trapped air. It rises, breaks, and pops beside your boat with a faint hiss, like the world exhaling again. You close your eyes once more, imagining yourself sinking slowly, peacefully into that 90%, into the quiet, glowing labyrinth below, where even time seems to float. Down there, everything moves at the pace of melting. You let yourself sink into the quiet again, deeper this time, until sound itself feels slower drawn out, syrupy, dreamlike. Then you notice that the ocean around the iceberg isn't silent at all. It's alive with a low, constant vibration, a deep chorus of tones rising and fading like the Earth's own heartbeat. It's not just your imagination. Icebergs sing. Their song begins with melting. As trapped air bubbles burst and cracks form, they create rippling vibrations that travel through the water for miles. Hydrophones record these sounds as ghostly moans, clicks, and rumbles, frequencies so low that you don't hear them, you feel them. In the early 2000s, researchers at the National Science Foundation captured these underwater symphonies around Antarctica. When sped up, they sounded almost like a whale choir tuning up for an evening performance. You imagine floating in the middle of that invisible concert, whales, seals, ice, all humming in layers. The pitch bends, rises, falls, harmonizing with the rhythm of the waves. It's hypnotic. It feels like the ocean is breathing in surround sound. Mainstream science tells you that these noises come from the fracturing of ice under stress from pressure differences and from the escape of trapped gases. But here's the quirky twist. A few oceanographers have found that when large icebergs hum at specific frequencies, they can actually make the seafloor tremble. The phenomenon is called icequake resonance, and in rare cases, these vibrations can last for hours. And as always, scientists still argue whether these natural hums might influence nearby marine life. Some believe the sounds serve as navigational cues for whales, guiding them through fog and darkness. Others say it's coincidence that the whales simply enjoy the company of sound. Either way, it's comforting to think of them swimming through the polar night, following the voice of melting ice. You picture it now, a massive blue-white cathedral floating in the Black Sea, its base glowing faintly from the friction of melt, and around it, whales gliding in slow circles singing back. You can almost hear it, their low baritone tones overlapping with the groaning of ice, forming a duet that no human orchestra could ever match. Some nights, the sounds echo across entire bays. Fishermen in Greenland tell stories of lying awake in their cabins as the sea sang beneath the floorboards. They say it feels like the world is murmuring in its sleep. You can see why. The water hums faintly even now, steady as a heartbeat, soft enough to lull you toward that warm edge of dreaming. The iceberg moans again, a deep, guttural tone that rises into a hollow whistle before fading into silence. You can almost feel it in your ribs. That's infrasound, the kind of frequency elephants and whales use to talk across continents. Humans can't consciously hear it, but your body registers it. Maybe that's why you're so calm right now. Part of you is already sinking to the rhythm of the sea. It's funny how sound works underwater. Everything travels faster, about 4 times faster than in air. So every creak, every groan from the ice reaches faraway ears almost instantly. Some icebergs hum for weeks after breaking free, like a slow farewell song that only the ocean hears. The air feels colder suddenly, though you're not sure if it's real or just your imagination filling in the scene. A light fog drifts low over the surface, and through it you can still see faint halos of aurora above. It feels like the whole sky is listening too. You lean closer to the water, half expecting to see something emerge. Instead, a faint shimmer catches your eye, tiny plankton glowing faintly with every vibration. Each pulse from the iceberg seems to trigger them, lighting up the water like soft underwater lightning. It's mesmerizing, like the ocean is translating sound into color. You remember reading once that sound waves can travel through the Antarctic circumpolar current for thousands of miles without fading much at all. That means an iceberg humming near the South Pole could be heard faintly off the coast of South America. Imagine that a single drifting sculpture of frozen water sending a lullaby halfway around the planet. You can't help but smile. The Earth hums more than we realize. It's just that most of the time we're too busy to listen. A few bubbles rise beside your boat, and when they pop, they release faint pops like snapping candy. Those sounds, too, are part of the song, the fizzing of trapped gases escaping after thousands of years. You're literally hearing ancient air whisper goodbye. You laugh quietly at the thought. It's the most polite climate change announcement ever made. Pfft. Some explorers in the early 20th century described hearing these same noises and believing that the icebergs were haunted. One claimed that the moaning sounds were the voices of drowned sailors sealed in the ice. Another said the ocean whistled like a kettle in hell. Dramatic, sure, but when you're surrounded by darkness, fog, and unseen shapes, humming deep below imagination fills the silence quickly. You tilt your head and listen again. The hum deepens steady now, like a single note being played on an ancient instrument. Maybe the iceberg isn't haunted, it's just remembering. Every vibration, every groan, every sigh is the sound of memory dissolving back into the sea. A few miles away, another iceberg answers, a higher, more brittle note. For a moment, they harmonize. You can't tell if it's the current, the temperature, or something else making them sing in unison. You just know that the result feels right. You let your breathing match it again. Slow inhale as the sound rises, long exhale as it fades. The rhythm steadies your heart, softens your thoughts. The world simplifies into sound and pulse, light and dark. And somewhere between those tones, you start to drift. You're not sure if you're awake anymore. The song of the iceberg wraps around you like a blanket of sound, low, ancient, endlessly patient. You realize that maybe the sea doesn't want silence after all. It wants a lullaby, and the ice has been singing it for millennia. You've been floating long enough to lose any sense of direction. There's no east or west out here, just the slow drift of wind and current carrying you where it pleases. The iceberg that once seemed motionless now glides gently, barely perceptible, yet relentless in its path. It's on a journey that began hundreds of miles inland, deep within Greenland's frozen heart. You picture it there, long before it met the sea, part of an ancient glacier, miles thick and older than civilization. Snow fell layer upon layer, compressing into dense blue ice until gravity forced it outward. For centuries, it crawled downhill slow as the hour hand of a forgotten clock, flowing through narrow valleys, groaning like a living thing under its own immense weight. That's the birthplace of every iceberg, not chaos, but persistence. Eventually, this one reached the coast. There, the glacier's tongue extended over the fjord, a frozen bridge creaking under pressure. And one quiet morning, if you can call a sound that loud, quiet, the ice tore free. The ocean claimed it. You imagine being there at that exact moment, the air splitting with a thunderclap, shards of ice flung skyward, waves surging outward like an awakening giant. Then silence again, as if the world paused to watch this newborn mountain float away. Since then, it's drifted south, nudged by invisible hand currents that twist and meander like veins across the planet. The East Greenland current pulled it first cold and slow, hugging the coast. Then the Labrador current caught it, steering it through ice-choked waters and past lonely islands. Now, months or even years later, it's here with you, whispering the same ancient tune. One mainstream fact: icebergs can travel thousands of miles from their origin. Some birthed in Greenland have been tracked all the way to the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, nicknamed Iceberg Alley. It's a natural migration route, a slow-motion parade of frozen giants. Ships pass them cautiously, radar pinging lights sweeping the mist. Yet for all the danger they pose, they move with almost lazy elegance. And here's the strange, charming part. Each iceberg carries a unique fingerprint. Scientists can trace one's origin by analyzing the ratio of oxygen isotopes in its ice. It's like a birth certificate stamped by the climate of the glacier that formed it. Some icebergs even release meltwaters so distinct that oceanographers can identify where they came from by taste and salinity alone. You tilt your head, amused. The idea that seawater can hold a passport is somehow both ridiculous and poetic. As you watch, the iceberg drifts past a patch of open ocean where the waves grow bolder. The rhythmic thud of water against its base sounds like slow applause. Above, the aurora fades, replaced by a pale band of early polar light. The horizon stretches into infinity, a seamless blend of sea ice and sky. You can't help but imagine the iceberg's inner life. It doesn't rush. It doesn't choose direction. It simply lets the world move it. The ocean's pull, the wind's whisper, the sun's gentle warmth all decide its fate. And somehow that feels freeing. You realize you could learn a lot from an iceberg about letting go. The locals in Greenland have a phrase for these wanderers, isar swak, meaning great ice. But among the Inuit storytellers, they carry deeper symbolism. In some legends, icebergs are the sleeping spirits of mountains. Tired of standing still on land, they drift off to dream in the ocean. Every groan is a snore, every collapse a sigh. And when they melt completely, the spirit wakes, returning to the clouds to begin the cycle again. You smile at the thought. The science is true, but the myth feels truer. Somewhere behind you, another iceberg cracks loudly, the sound ricocheting across the still water. For a moment, it echoes like distant cannon fire, then fades into nothing. You watch the ripples reach your boat, gentle but steady like a heartbeat from miles away. The sea is never entirely still. Even in silence, something is always breathing. A seal pops its head above the surface nearby, blinking curiously before diving again with a splash. You grin. For a creature living in perpetual cold, it looks surprisingly content. It reminds you that this frozen world isn't barren. It's bustling just quietly so. You dip your hand into the icy water again, tracing small ripples that glide toward the iceberg. For a fleeting second, it feels like you're part of its story, connected by that shared movement. There's something comforting in realizing how small you are out here. Not insignificant, just appropriately sized. The universe makes sense when you're humble enough to float with it. Then a soft mist begins to rise, curling around the iceberg like smoke. The air smells faintly metallic, sharp with salt and ozone. The distant sun throws thin rays across the fog, and for an instant, the iceberg glows again, gold over blue, as if lit from within. You remember a fringe theory you once heard. Some physicists propose that glacial ice could emit faint electromagnetic fields as it fractures, a kind of cryogenic aurora. It's unproven, of course, and scientists still argue about whether those instruments simply picked up interference. But you like the image, a glowing heartbeat in the fog, a quiet pulse of light that no one sees. The fog thickens, curling around you, until sea and sky disappear. You can't even see the tip of the iceberg anymore, just the soft hum and occasional groan. It feels as though you've been swallowed by the dream itself. And then faintly through the mist, you hear another crack, then another. The iceberg is shedding small fragments, little echoes of its birth. You watch them float past each one, a miniature sculpture, some shaped like thrones, others like broken arches. One even looks like a sleeping animal. You imagine naming them, but stop yourself. They don't need names. They'll melt soon enough. That thought isn't sad somehow. It's beautiful, the idea that something can wander halfway across the world, only to dissolve quietly into the sea that made it. You breathe out, watching the mist carry your breath away. Somewhere in that same cloud, maybe a molecule of ancient glacier exhales too. The circle continues, endlessly, peacefully, inevitably. You're just another driftwood thought on the tide tonight, and the ocean, as always, hums its slow, eternal lullaby. When the fog finally lifts, it does so like a curtain after a long intermission, slowly, reluctantly, as if the sea itself has decided you've earned another scene. What unfolds before you is hauntingly still. The world looks like a half-forgotten dream, painted in shades of gray and silver. You squint through the mist and notice a shape looming on the horizon, another iceberg, but stranger than the rest. Its edges rise sharp and jagged like the spires of a ruined cathedral. You blink again, and for a fleeting second, it almost looks like a ship. And that's when you remember the stories, the ghost ships of the polar sea. Long before radar and satellite maps, sailors spoke of seeing phantom vessels gliding silently through the fog. Massive, glittering silhouettes that vanished the moment you approached. Most of them weren't ships at all, they were icebergs. The reflection of moonlight and mist created perfect illusions, making frozen towers look like ghostly hulls with glowing decks. But for those sailors isolated in endless gray seas, the sight must have been terrifying. A drifting palace where no one lived. A vessel made of ice. Some captains swore they saw lanterns moving within the frozen walls, points of orange light flickering deep in the ice. Scientists say that's probably bioluminescence from trapped plankton or small crustaceans. But the old sea stories claim otherwise. Those were the souls of lost sailors condemned to wander the Arctic in ships of frozen water. You smile softly. Science explains the glow. Myth explains the feeling. Both are right in their own way. One fact to ground you: ice can refract and scatter light so efficiently that even a faint lantern beam, or in modern times, a ship's navigation light, can split into dozens of reflections inside an iceberg. That's how a single lamp could appear as an entire cruise worth of candles. But the fringe version of the story is better, isn't it? Scientists still argue whether psychological isolation fatigue or the eerie magnetism of the poles caused those shared hallucinations. Maybe it's a little of everything. You let the boat drift closer, waves slapping softly against the hull. The iceberg's surface sparkles under the dim morning glow. It's tall, easily 100 feet above the sea, and shaped almost like a fortress. You imagine early explorers staring at one like this, mistaking it for a castle of ice. There's something medieval about its arches and turrets, as if knights might ride out from its frozen gates at any moment. The air grows colder, heavier. You hear faint creaks from within the iceberg, internal stresses building, shifting. It sounds uncannily like footsteps. You almost laugh at yourself, but the sound persists, a slow rhythm deep and distant, echoing through the ice. Rationally, you know it's just pressure fractures moving through crystalline layers. But your sleepy brain paints pictures anyway. Ghostly sailors pacing the decks of their frozen ship, whispering in languages long forgotten. Somewhere, a low groan vibrates through the water. A nearby seabird squawks and takes off startled. The sound fades into a hollow echo that feels like the ocean's memory of thunder. You glance upward. The sky is pale now, streaked with faint sunlight that struggles to reach this remote world. And for a brief moment, as a shaft of light hits the ice, the entire iceberg flares to life. Its walls turn translucent, glowing from within like stained glass. Veins of trapped sediment form swirls and streaks, browns, grays, even faint reds like brushstrokes across a frozen mural. It's breathtaking. You can't look away. You lean closer to the water's surface, tracing the iceberg's reflection. The image trembles with each wave, the ship shimmering as though trying to decide what form it prefers. A ship, a mountain, a memory. You exhale slowly, fogging the air in front of you. One sailor's log from 1823 described such a scene almost exactly. He wrote, "We hailed her thrice, but no sound came back save our own. She bore no flag, no sail, and yet she drifted against the wind." You can see it now, the confusion, the awe. Maybe that's why people imagine ghosts. Because what else do you call something that moves without wind sings, without mouth glows, without fire, and vanishes without trace? You laugh quietly, shaking your head. Maybe humans just can't resist giving meaning to what's silent. As you circle around the iceberg, you notice a smaller one trailing behind it, an offshoot perhaps, broken from the same parent glacier. They drift together, like two ships in convoy. The sea is calm enough now that you can hear the faint plink-plink of meltwater dripping into the ocean. It's a soothing rhythm, steady, predictable, eternal. You think of sailors who spent months trapped among these drifting giants, their ships frozen into pack ice. They must have heard that same dripping every night, slowly, endlessly. A lullaby and a warning, both at once. A gust of wind ruffles your hair and carries the sharp scent of brine. The iceberg's reflection ripples apart. For a moment, it looks like the ghost ship is sinking. Then just as suddenly, the surface stills again and the illusion reforms. You realize something then: the ocean has always been a mirror. It reflects our fears, our myths, our longing. The iceberg doesn't change. It's our gaze that trembles. You sit quietly for a while, listening to the creaks and groans, the slow churn of meltwater under the hull. You think about all the sailors who once felt the same mixture of dread and wonder, thousands of miles from home, watching these frozen cathedrals drift through the fog. They didn't know the physics, the light refraction, the biology. They just saw magic, and you, even knowing the science, still do. The mist begins to close again, gentle as a curtain, as if the ghost ship wants its privacy back. You nod to it, because what else do you do when the past sails by? And let your boat drift onward, carried by the same invisible currents that guide everything here. Somewhere ahead, the hum of another iceberg begins low and distant. The polar choir never stops. It only changes singers. You drift on the echoes of that ghostly iceberg, fading into memory until the sea grows strangely quiet, eerily flat, like glass stretched thin over darkness. The air feels heavier here, thicker somehow, as if the atmosphere itself remembers something it would rather forget. You know where you are. This is the patch of ocean that has lived forever in the collective imagination, the graveyard of ships and ice. Tonight you've reached the resting place of legends. You see it first as a faint shimmer far ahead, then as a pale gleam catching the edge of dawn. The iceberg looks ordinary at first, tall, sheer-sided with a crown of white frost glinting under the pale light. But as you draw nearer, your mind can't help tracing the shape in your imagination, the iceberg that collided with the Titanic. For over a century, this one tragedy has haunted every discussion of icebergs. People forget that thousands drift safely each year. But one fateful night in April 1912, an iceberg's silent path crossed with a ship built to defy nature. You hover there in your mind's eye, the ocean calm, the stars bright as diamonds. The Titanic glides at 22 knots through the North Atlantic, her decks filled with laughter and music. Then somewhere around 11:40 p.m., a lookout rings the bell. Iceberg right ahead, the ship turns, but not fast enough. The iceberg scrapes along the starboard side, opening her hull like a zipper beneath the waterline. The sound survivors said wasn't an explosion or crash, it was more like tearing silk. The iceberg doesn't shatter. It doesn't even flinch. It simply slides past, indifferent. You let the image fade again, replaced by the quiet you float in now. The sea has long since healed over, but the story lingers like a scar. The iceberg that struck the Titanic likely melted months later, its fragments drifting into oblivion. The real villain, if there was one, was chance and hubris. Mainstream science offers the facts. The iceberg likely broke off from Greenland around 2 years before the collision and traveled over 1,600 miles south along the Labrador Current before meeting the ship. It was composed of hard glacial ice dents, enough to survive, even after months of melting. But there's a detail that fascinates you. Eyewitnesses described it as dark, almost invisible against the calm sea. That's because under certain lighting, an iceberg's wet surface reflects no starlight at all. It becomes black against black. The crew was scanning for white, but nature had turned the danger invisible. Some quirky historians have suggested the iceberg might not have been pure ice at all, but laced with volcanic dust from an eruption years earlier, darkening its surface. Others think the calm sea that night made spotting it impossible because no waves broke against its base. Scientists still argue whether the fatal factor was human error, optical illusion, or sheer cosmic coincidence. You exhale slowly. It's strange to think that a single block of ancient ice born in silence, drifting for years, unmoved by anything human, could alter so many lives. And yet the iceberg wasn't cruel. It was just there, doing what ice does, floating, melting, existing. You can't help but see the irony. The Titanic was the pinnacle of man's engineering, and the iceberg nature's patience made visible. Both collided, and the ocean reminded everyone who'd been here first. You glance at your own iceberg nearby, still and luminous, and whisper, "You were never the villain, were you?" The wind doesn't answer, but a faint creak rolls through the ice as though it's sighing. Maybe agreement, maybe amusement. What few people know is that the ocean has a long memory. Even after the Titanic sank, icebergs in that region became subjects of fascination and fear. The newly formed International Ice Patrol began tracking them using ships and later aircraft. Today, satellites follow their every move. We map them, tag them, photograph them, but we still can't predict them perfectly. They are, by definition, chaos sculpted into form. Another fun fact, in 2012, a century after the Titanic's sinking, scientists found a massive iceberg drifting through the same region. They named it B-15K and joked it might be a descendant of the original. It glowed faintly blue, eerily similar in shape and size. The ocean, it seems, has a taste for symbolism. You picture the iceberg beneath you, its vast, unseen bulk below its pale ridges above, and realize it's more than a floating object. It's a mirror. It reflects the arrogance, curiosity, and wonder of everyone who's ever looked upon it. You close your eyes and imagine being on that ship for a moment. Not during the panic, but in the calm before it. The sea dead still, the stars so bright that the horizon disappears. You could almost walk across the water. Then from the crow's nest, the cry, "Iceberg ahead." You look out, but see only a black void. The water's too smooth, the world too quiet. The iceberg doesn't reveal itself until it's too late. It's chilling, but not because of the tragedy. It's chilling because it's so human. We often only notice what's dangerous when it's already beside us. The iceberg groans softly, grounding you back in the present. The memory fades, and what remains is serenity. No panic, no disaster, just the slow drift of frozen water through endless night. You realize that maybe icebergs don't mean doom after all. Maybe they're reminders to look closer, to slow down, to respect what moves beneath the surface. As you watch a small piece of ice breaks off and drifts toward your boat, you reach out and pick it up carefully. It's cold enough to burn your fingertips, but you hold it anyway, watching how the rising light refracts through it. Tiny air bubbles shimmer inside each one, a memory from centuries past. You let it melt slowly in your hand until it's gone. Just a drop now, mixing with the ocean. Somewhere in that drop might be the same water that brushed against the Titanic's hull, that once fell as snow on Greenland's mountains, that might someday rise again as cloud and rain. You smile softly. The iceberg's story isn't tragedy, it's continuity. The ocean forgets nothing, it only changes shape. The horizon blushes faintly pink. Dawn is coming quiet and calm. You breathe in the cold air, letting it fill your lungs like history itself. Above the gentle hum of the waves, you hear it again, and the faint moan of ice shifting like a song echoing across time. A requiem, yes, but also a lullaby. You close your eyes, letting it carry you. The ghosts of the past are gone. The ice remains drifting forward just as it always has. You rest your chin on the edge of the boat, watching faint ripples roll outward as dawn turns the water silver. The air has softened, still cold, but with a hint of salt and sunlight. The iceberg beside you gleams brighter now, no longer eerie, but gentle, almost kind. And beneath it, hidden from view, another world stirs to life. You might expect the sea around an iceberg to be barren, frozen, empty, but it's not. It's alive in quiet abundance. Each melt stream trickling from the ice carries dust minerals and nutrients that have been locked away for millennia. As they dissolve, they turn the surrounding water into a microscopic bloom of possibility. The first to respond are the smallest phytoplankton, tiny drifting plants, invisible to the naked eye. They feed on the iron and silica the iceberg releases, and in doing so, they spark one of the ocean's great miracles. Within hours, an entire food web wakes up. The water takes on a faint greenish tint as plankton multiply, absorbing sunlight and exhaling oxygen. Shrimp-like krills swarm to feed, followed by small fish, followed by everything: larger seals, seabirds, whales. What began as melting becomes music, a cascade of life from ice to sky. You lean back and smile. So that's the secret of icebergs. They're not just remnants of the past. They're catalysts for the future. Mainstream science calls this phenomenon fertilization events. Studies show that the wake of a melting iceberg can double or even triple biological productivity in the nearby sea. One floating mountain of ice can sustain thousands of creatures like a slow-moving banquet drifting through the ocean. But there's something even stranger. Those nutrients, those particles of dust and ancient pollen came from land, swept onto glaciers by wind ages ago. So when an iceberg melts, it's not just feeding the sea, it's returning Earth to itself. A conversation between continents and oceans whispered through meltwater. You dip your hand into the frigid water again. It's still cold enough to sting, but now it feels alive. Little bubbles rise and pop against your skin. Maybe it's imagination, but you swear the water feels busier. Tiny, invisible movements brushing past like static. Life unseen but humming. You picture a humpback whale nearby, its enormous shadow gliding through the green glow beneath the iceberg's base. It opens its mouth, scooping krill by the thousands before vanishing again into the blue. The sound it makes, a low rumbling note, blends seamlessly with the groaning of the ice. Two voices, one ancient rhythm. A fringe idea once suggested that whales might actually track icebergs for food following the trail of plankton blooms they create. It's not proven, but it makes sense. A whale's migration path often mirrors the drifting routes of old ice. Scientists still argue whether that's coincidence or instinct, older than language. Either way, it's beautiful, one giant following another. You tilt your head, amused. Who knew bedtime could turn into a marine ecology lesson? But there's comfort in the logic of it all. Every drip of melting ice, every burst of algae, every passing fish, it's all part of a quiet, self-sustaining pattern. Nothing is wasted, nothing is permanent. Above you, a gull cries. It swoops down, skimming the surface, then lands on the iceberg's edge to rest. You can hear its claws scratching faintly against the ice. Even the smallest life finds a place here, a moment of stillness before moving on. You watch as sunlight deepens the golden glow, reaching into the iceberg's blue veins. The contrast is stunning, warm light meeting frozen time. For a heartbeat, it feels like watching the planet breathe. You remember a documentary clip once. An underwater camera drifting past an iceberg's underside. The scene was unreal, shimmering blue walls streaked with veins of white translucent shelves of meltwater cascading like waterfalls. Strange jellyfish pulsed nearby their bodies, glowing faintly pink against the blue. It was so beautiful that even the scientist narrating paused mid-sentence, his voice caught by wonder. It's easy to forget that every iceberg is temporary, yet during its brief existence, it creates entire worlds. Ecosystems bloom and vanish in its wake, like fireworks in slow motion. That's what you're watching now, a quiet explosion of life beneath the calmest surface on Earth. A puffin flies past, awkward and endearing, flapping its short wings furiously before diving straight into the water. It disappears for a moment, then resurfaces triumphantly with a tiny fish in its beak. You laugh softly. "Breakfast time," you whisper. Even here at the edge of nowhere, the rhythm of survival continues. Life doesn't stop for the cold. It adapts, thrives, improvises. The air smells different now, fresher, almost sweet. You realize it's the scent of phytoplankton, microscopic but potent, tinting the air with the faint aroma of ozone and salt. It smells like the beginning of something. You remember reading once that half of the oxygen you breathe comes from these tiny ocean plants. Half of every breath you've ever taken owes itself in some way to the sea. So when you inhale now, you're sharing air with the ocean's oldest partnership, ice and life. You exhale slowly, a puff of white against the morning light. It feels grounding, that thought. The iceberg may melt, but its gift lingers in every molecule of oxygen, in every wave, in every heartbeat. You glance down again at the water. The surface ripples faintly, as if stirred by invisible fingers. You can't see them, but you know they're there, the plankton, the krill, the fish, the whales, all moving in silent choreography. And for the first time, the iceberg doesn't seem lonely. It's surrounded by its creation. A seal pops up nearby, blinking at you with dark, curious eyes, before diving again with a splash that breaks the stillness. You grin. You're welcome. You murmur to the iceberg. In your head it answers, not in words, but in sound, the deep, resonant hum you've come to recognize. The song of melting ice, patient and ancient. It isn't sorrowful anymore. It's content. The sea glimmers like liquid glass, every ripple catching the light. You stretch your legs, breathe in deeply, and realize something small but comforting, and no matter how far the iceberg drifts, it leaves life in its wake. And so perhaps do we all. The light shifts again, slipping into that liminal hour where day begins to stretch, but the cold refuses to leave. The sea feels endless, rolling beneath you, like the slow breathing of some patient god. The iceberg beside you has melted slightly overnight, its edges smoother now, softer, as if time itself has been sanding it down. Tiny rivulets of meltwater trickle along its sides, glistening like tears. You lean closer, tracing the delicate streams with your eyes. Each droplet carries a story, particles of dust, salt, and microscopic bits of ancient earth. Within that meltwater is a chemistry lab billions of years in the making. That's your first fact of the night. Icebergs are not just frozen water. They're archives. When scientists melt and analyze samples, they uncover traces of cosmic dust, volcanic ash pollen from extinct forests, even tiny remnants of bacteria sealed away since before humans walked upright. In every cubic meter of this ice, there's history. You let that sink in for a moment. Somewhere in that crystalline wall beside you might be the faintest particle from an asteroid that burned up in the atmosphere 50,000 years ago, or a grain of sand swept from a long-vanished Sahara. Each layer records what the world was breathing when it froze. You close your eyes and imagine you can hear it, the crackle of starlight, the sigh of distant deserts, the slow rumble of a newborn volcano. Every sound, every molecule trapped, waiting patiently to be read. But what fascinates you even more is what's between the ice crystals as the microscopic air bubbles. They're like time capsules of the atmosphere itself. The ratio of gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, methane, tells scientists how warm or cold the world was when that snow fell. It's like holding a thermometer that stretches back 1,000,000 years. Mainstream research has shown that the concentration of carbon dioxide in these bubbles oscillated for hundreds of millennia, following natural rhythms of ice ages and thaws. But in the most recent layers, ours, the levels spike like never before. The ice remembers everything, even the parts we wish it didn't. You sigh, not with guilt, but with quiet awe. The iceberg doesn't judge. It simply records. Then comes the stranger part. Some researchers studying Antarctic cores found traces of extraterrestrial dust, microscopic fragments of meteorites trapped in ice, each speck older than Earth itself. A few fringe theorists, poetic, if not entirely scientific, like to say that means we all breathe pieces of space every day. Scientists still argue whether those cosmic signatures could reveal ancient solar events like when distant stars exploded, sending faint waves of radiation that left marks in Earth's frozen skin. You smile softly. Maybe that's why these icebergs feel holy. They're the intersection of worlds. Water from Earth, dust from the stars, time held perfectly still. You dip your hand into the meltwater running along the iceberg side. It's so cold it stings, but you don't pull away. The droplets beat on your skin like liquid demons before sliding off into the sea. That water has been frozen since mammoths walked Europe, since humans painted on cave walls by firelight. Now it's here touching your fingertips, becoming part of the ocean again. There's something beautiful in that return. You picture scientists in thick parkas, drilling cores deep into the ice sheets, pulling out cylinders of frozen history that gleam faintly under fluorescent light. They study the trapped air to trace volcanoes that erupted before recorded history, to follow the rise and fall of civilizations mirrored in climate shifts. The ice is a diary that never lies. And yet, despite all we've learned, there's still mystery. No one fully understands the cycles that drive glacial ages or why they end so suddenly. Some suggest orbital changes, others point to cosmic radiation or fluctuations in solar activity. Scientists still argue which rhythm the planet dances to. You wonder if maybe the truth is simpler, that Earth breathes and sometimes exhales ice. You glance up. The morning sun breaks through a gap in the clouds, scattering shards of gold across the sea. The iceberg glows again. Blue and amber mixed a color no artist could name. For a moment, the entire ocean seems to shimmer in agreement with the sky. The soundscape changes too. The constant low groaning quiets replaced by a soft hiss as the ice melts more quickly under the sunlight. Tiny bubbles pop like distant applause. You lean in, listening closely. Each sound, each fizz, each sigh is air that once filled ancient lungs, maybe of creatures long gone. You take another deep breath. We're all recycling each other, you murmur with a grin. Your voice echoes faintly off the ice, distorted into something both familiar and alien. You imagine the sound traveling down into the depths, where it joins 1,000 other murmurs. The wails, the cracking ice, the shifting currents. Everything speaking in one long, slow conversation. Then from the corner of your eye, you catch something small and strange. A faint sparkle moves through the water. A tiny crystal drifting, turning glowing as sunlight hits it. For a heartbeat, you think it's just ice. Then another glimmer appears, and another, until a curtain of shimmering particles drifts beneath the surface. You realize what you're seeing: microbubbles from the melting ice, catching the light in all directions. They float downward like snow, falling in reverse. The sea is snowing upward. You laugh quietly to yourself. The iceberg is teaching you how to reverse the world's logic, how to make up feel like down and endings feel like beginnings. A breeze brushes across your face, bringing with it the faint scent of salt and metal and something else, ozone maybe, or starlight carried in the water. You don't bother trying to name it. You just breathe it in, slowly, fully. The iceberg shifts, releasing a hollow boom that rolls across the sea like a drum beat. You imagine it as punctuation, marking the end of one story and the start of another. You look back at it once more. Its edges gleam like glass, its sides etched with the handwriting of time. Inside it, the history of the planet sleeps, and maybe a few specks of space dust dreaming of the stars they left behind. The thought makes you sleepy again. You smile faintly. If time had a lullaby, it would sound exactly like melting ice. The afternoon light begins to slant low, turning the ice from brilliant blue to soft white. Shadows stretch across the water like ink lines, slow and lazy. The iceberg beside you creaks again, louder this time, and for a moment you think it might split, but it doesn't. It just sighs, expelling a long breath of mist, as if acknowledging the warmth. You watch the melting continue. The top glistens, the edges thin, the water darkens with each drop that falls. It feels inevitable. Beautiful, yes, but inevitable. And that's where the story turns melancholy. Because no matter how ancient, no matter how magnificent, every iceberg has a lifespan. It will shrink, fracture, and vanish, its bones dissolving quietly into the ocean. You can almost hear the sound of it, fading, a faint hiss, like rain hitting hot pavement, a whisper of goodbye. It's easy to romanticize that process, but it's also a warning. Icebergs have always melted, but now they're melting faster. You lean back and stare toward the horizon. Where there should be dozens of floating giants, there are only a few. Scientists have been documenting their decline for decades. Satellite imagery shows fewer large icebergs calving each year from Antarctica and Greenland. The ones that do form melt sooner, some disappearing before they even leave their fjords. Mainstream research estimates that Earth is losing about 1.2 trillion tons of ice annually. That's a number so large it doesn't fit easily in the mind. It means rising seas, altered currents, and changing weather. It means coastlines rewritten. You sigh softly, tracing a circle on the surface of the water with your finger. The ripple expands outward, tiny and useless, against the scale of it all. But still you make it, because even the smallest gesture feels like a reply. You remember an old Inuit saying, "The ice does not mourn, but it remembers." Maybe that's the point. The iceberg doesn't feel its own death, it simply completes its purpose. It melts, feeds the ocean, drifts into cloud falls again, as snow, and starts the cycle anew. It doesn't fear vanishing, because vanishing is how it endures. You glance at the melting edge nearest you. It's translucent now, glowing from within as sunlight seeps through. Inside the ice, tiny cracks spiderweb outward, glinting like gold filigree. Each one looks fragile enough to shatter at a whisper, yet together they hold the entire structure upright. You smile at that quiet, paradox strength through fragility. A small block of ice breaks off with a splash. The sound is delicate, almost polite. It bobs on the waves for a moment before drifting away. You watch it go, feeling oddly protective. It's easy to think of these fragments as orphans of a fading world. But in truth, they're messengers, each carrying the story forward. And that's your scientific fact for this stretch of the journey. As icebergs melt, the fresh water they release affects ocean salinity and circulation. In certain regions that change in density, can slow major currents like the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, the system that redistributes heat around the planet. It's a global heartbeat, and the ice is part of its rhythm. But here's the quirky twist: not all melting spells doom. Some marine scientists argue that the influx of fresh water temporarily boosts local ecosystems, sparking blooms and replenishing nutrients. So even as the ice disappears, it leaves a brief, fierce flourish of life. Scientists still debate which effect will dominate the renewal or the imbalance. The planet, like the iceberg, resists simple answers. You squint at the horizon again. The sea glows pale pink, now reflecting a sky that looks both endless and tender. You think of all the photographs, the famous ones showing lone polar bears perched on tiny ice floes, the headlines about collapse and loss. You've seen them so often that the image became cliche. But seeing it now in your mind, stripped of noise and panic, it's heartbreakingly quiet. You whisper to the iceberg, "I'm sorry," though you're not sure who you're apologizing for. Humanity time, yourself, the iceberg answers in its language, a slow groan from deep within, a release of air bubbles like a soft sigh. You imagine it saying, "There's nothing to forgive." Everything changes. You let that settle into you. Maybe the real lesson isn't sorrow, but perspective. Maybe this isn't a story of loss, but of continuation, just told in slower sentences than we're used to. A gust of wind brushes past, carrying the scent of salt and cold iron. A few flakes of slushy snow begin to fall, not from clouds, but from the iceberg itself, flurries of melt refreezing mid-air before touching the water. The sight is strangely beautiful, a personal snowfall, fleeting and private. You stretch out your hand and let one flake land on your palm. It melts instantly. You don't even feel it. It's too small, too brief. But somehow that moment feels enormous. You look at the iceberg again, smaller now, hollowed at the base, its top leaning slightly. It's becoming transparent light, spilling through its center like glass. It's not dying, it's revealing itself. You realize then that maybe the melancholy you feel isn't really about melting ice at all. It's about impermanence, about the simple fact that everything beautiful eventually transforms. The iceberg doesn't resist. It just goes where it must. You close your eyes and listen again to that faint, rhythmic dripping, the heartbeat of thaw. It's steady, soothing. It sounds almost like rain. A seal barks in the distance. Then silence returns vast and clean. The horizon glows orange now, the sun hanging low and soft like an ember behind thin clouds. You can't help but think that even the sky looks a little wistful today. You draw your knees close, wrapping your arms around them. The world feels wide, but not empty. You're floating in the middle of change itself, watching the planet breathe in and out. And somehow that feels okay. The iceberg creaks one last time, its shadows shimmering in the golden light. You whisper, "Go on," and it does. Slowly, gracefully it tilts, sinks a little deeper and continues its drift, half here, half gone, still beautiful. By the time evening slides in, the sea feels heavier again, thicker, quieter, as if the weight of distance itself has settled across the horizon. The water takes on that deep navy tone that swallows reflections whole, and the air turns colder, sharp enough to bite at your fingertips. The iceberg beside you is changing color once more. Gone is the pure white sheen of the north. Now it gleams steel gray under the fading light. This one isn't from Greenland. You've drifted further south, though it feels like you've crossed into another world entirely. Here, the ice tells a different story, Antarctica's story. You picture it in your mind, a continent larger than Europe, buried under miles of frozen water, crowned with glaciers the size of mountain ranges. From above it looks serene, smooth, pale, unbroken. But beneath its chaos, rivers flowing under the ice crevasses, yawning wide enough to swallow skyscrapers, valleys carved by time itself. And somewhere down there, deep below the coldest layers, icebergs are being born. The Antarctic iced sheet calves, icebergs so large that satellites struggle to frame them. Some are bigger than entire cities. One known as B-15 was larger than Jamaica, measuring over 11,000 square kilometers. When it broke free in 2000, the sound of its fracture was so deep it rippled through the planet's crust, detected by seismographs across continents. You imagine it a continent exhaling. That's your fact for this chapter. Antarctica births some of the largest moving objects on Earth, and yet they drift silently, gracefully, as if size itself no longer mattered. You tilt your head, watching the reflections. The Antarctic icebergs have their own personality. They're not jagged like their northern cousins. They're flat-topped, sculpted by wind and waves into giant drifting plateaus. They look like lost continents, floating tables of ancient time. The edges gleam gold under sunset, while the centers glow faintly blue, deep as thought. You've heard that pilots call them tabular giants. You prefer the phrase sleeping gods. Each one can survive for decades, traveling through what sailors once called the Iceberg Graveyard, near South Georgia Island. There, warm currents nibble away at their bases, creating vast caverns that collapse with thunderous roars. You can almost hear it now, the deep rumble echoing through the still air. The sound makes you shiver, not from fear, but from reverence. These are cathedrals of ice sculpted not by human hands, but by patience and gravity. The strange thing is, despite their immense size, no two are identical. Wind temperature and waves sculpt each differently. Some tilt, revealing vast underwater wings of ice stretching outward like frozen manta rays. Others break into perfect geometric slabs, nature's minimalist art. As you drift closer, the air grows colder still. The wind picks up sharp and dry, and you smell snow. A clean, sterile scent that always seems to precede silence. It's the kind of air that feels alive in your lungs, crisp enough to wake every cell. You rest your hand on the boat's rim, feeling the faint tremors of nearby waves. In the distance, a low wall of ice stretches across the horizon like a fortress. It's not an illusion, just another iceberg, its edge so flat that it mirrors the sea perfectly. It feels infinite. Somewhere out there, penguins are nesting on the flatter bergs, chattering like 1,000 tiny comedians. You can almost hear them. Their calls echo over the still water, and the sound, playful, irreverent, a reminder that even the grandest things share space with joy. You smile. The universe doesn't mind mixing the sacred with the silly. And then you notice something unusual, a faint shimmer in the air above the iceberg. It's not light exactly, but a kind of distortion, like heat waves over a desert road. You squint and realize it's the reflection of the setting sun bouncing off the ice's surface into the thin Antarctic atmosphere. The refracted light forms mirages, upside-down mountains, phantom ships, shapes that shouldn't exist. Sailors once called this phenomenon Fata Morgana. They thought it was witchcraft. Science calls it temperature inversion. You call it dream logic. A fringe paper once claimed that atmospheric mirages like these might have tricked explorers in the 1800s into thinking they'd seen mythical southern continents, Atlantis, reborn under a different sky. Scientists still argue about how many cartographic phantoms were born of bending light and weary eyes. It's strangely comforting that even in an age of satellites, the Earth can still play optical tricks. The iceberg groans softly again, interrupting your thoughts. A thin crack snakes across its surface, catching the last rays of sunlight and glowing orange for an instant before vanishing into blue shadow. You realize you've been holding your breath. You exhale slowly, fog curling around your lips. You think of the South Pole scientists isolated for months in research stations surrounded by endless white. Some of them write poetry in their downtime. Others compose music on old guitars. One researcher once said, "You start hearing the ice after a while. It has moods." You can believe that. The Antarctic ice tonight sounds contemplative, not angry. It hums with deep, resonant tones that feel like the planet humming to itself, a vibration that travels through water, through bone, through thought. You close your eyes, and for a moment you swear you can sense the entire southern continent breathing slow, deep, and ancient. Every calving glacier, every drifting iceberg, every ripple in the sea is part of that inhale and exhale. You feel small again, but this time it's not humbling, it's comforting. To be small here is to belong. The first stars begin to appear above the dim horizon. They twinkle faintly through thin ice clouds, each one reflected a dozen times in the calm water below. You watch them until your vision blurs. You realize something. And then the Antarctic ice doesn't feel like the end of the world. It feels like it's beginning. Everything starts in silence. You pull your coat tighter, let the sound of the distant iceberg lull you again, and drift onward under a sky that has forgotten the meaning of noise. Night falls differently in the south. It doesn't simply arrive, it rises, seeping up from the horizon like ink poured into water. You notice it creeping first along the underside of the clouds, then settling softly over the sea. The air cools again. Your breath turns silver. The iceberg beside you fades from sculpture to silhouette. Only its edges remain lit, catching the last violet glimmer of twilight. The longer you stare, the more it seems to move. Not physically, though. It still drifts, but in meaning. You've seen the science density, salinity, melt rates, refractive light. But now, under the velvet dark, you start to see what ancient sailors and storytellers once did. Icebergs aren't just frozen water, they're ideas given shape. Myths that forgot they were metaphors. You remember reading somewhere that every culture with ice has its own legends about it. The Inuit spoke of Sila, the spirit of weather itself, who shaped the icebergs as mirrors for human emotion. When they groaned, it was Sila sighing. When they split apart, she was angry. Scandinavian sagas told of Jökull ice giants who guarded the frozen seas, each one a remnant of the first frost from creation. The Celts imagined crystal palaces drifting north homes for sea spirits who whispered to those lost in fog. And of course, there's the myth you half remember from an old Arctic journal, that deep within the largest iceberg sleeps a city of glass, a place where the sea's dreams freeze into towers where no one ages because time itself moves too slowly to count. The explorers who wrote it were half-starved and frostbitten, but you like to believe they saw something true anyway. The iceberg beside you groans softly as if amused by the thought. You lean forward, elbows on your knees, eyes fixed on its glowing outline. In the faint light, cracks and channels in the ice look like streets seen from above. A city indeed, just silent and vertical. You imagine frozen stairways, arches of blue glass, narrow corridors filled with trapped air that hums like distant music. Maybe that's where the iceberg songs come from, echoes of a civilization that's been asleep for 10,000 years. Your rational mind offers the facts. Those sounds are caused by pressurization and thermal expansion. The patterns you see are simply melt channels. But your tired brain whispers, let it be magic for a while. You obey. A light wind picks up sliding cold fingers through your hair. The sea hisses softly against the hull. Above you, the first stars emerge, so many that the sky itself seems to shimmer. Their reflections in the water turn the ocean into a second night sky, and the iceberg floats between them halfway between heaven and mirror. You think of all the explorers who chase these myths. Men in wooden ships, their compasses spinning near the poles, swearing they saw light beneath the ice. Some claimed it was phosphorescence. Others said it was the souls of drowned sailors' glimmers of the afterlife shining through the cracks of the world. Even now, some polar researchers report strange pulses of light in deep crevasses, electrical discharges caused by shifting ice crystals rubbing together. Scientists still argue whether it's static electricity or something stranger. You chuckle softly. Maybe it's both, you whisper. Science explains the mechanism. Myth explains the meaning. You settle deeper into the rhythm of the sea. The hum of the iceberg has lowered now, slower, almost meditative. The sound feels less like a warning and more like breathing in sync. You wonder if that's the real reason people hear ghosts in the ice, because it sounds too human to ignore. A shooting star cuts across the horizon, leaving a faint golden trail. For a second, its reflection burns across the water, bisected by the iceberg's shadow. Then both fade, leaving only the dark. You breathe out, and the mist from your breath joins the fog rising from the sea. For a fleeting moment, you feel weightless, part of the mist, part of the night, part of everything. Your mind drifts again to the myths. The Vikings believed that when an iceberg melted completely, its spirit ascended as a white bird to carry messages to the gods. The Inuit said the same, only theirs took the form of whales. Either way, nothing truly vanished. It just changed form. The idea comforts you, you whisper to the iceberg. When you melt, will you remember me? A soft crack answers somewhere deep within its core. You laugh under your breath. I'll take that as a yes. The stars multiply, and now the Milky Way spills like powdered ice across the sky. Its reflection shimmers perfectly in the still sea until you can't tell where the galaxy ends and the water begins. You realize then how similar they are, stars and ice. Both born from pressure and cold, both glinting briefly before they vanish. And suddenly, the myth of the glass city doesn't seem so far-fetched. Maybe the universe itself is just another frozen cathedral, and we're the tiny flickers of light trapped inside, humming softly until we melt. You smile, feeling the drowsiness settle again. The cold doesn't bite now. It soothes. The sea rocks you gently, the icebergs hum like a lullaby drawn from the bones of the earth. Science, myth, memory, they all blend here into one long, slow exhale. You whisper, "Good night, giants," and the race answers in creaks and sighs that sound suspiciously like laughter. The next morning arrives slowly, so softly that you don't notice it at first. The sky brightens behind the fog, turning gray, then silver, then faint gold. The iceberg you fell asleep beside has changed again. Its sharp corners have rounded overnight. The once solid ridges now shimmer with dripping meltwater, and the air hums with quiet movement. You realize you're witnessing something private and ending that's also a return. Every iceberg, no matter how vast, eventually meets its moment of surrender. It drifts into warmer seas, thins from beneath, and one day, silently, gracefully, it lets go. What's left behind isn't ruin, but transformation. You watch as the edges begin to crumble, little shards tumbling into the waves. Each piece catches the light for just a second before vanishing into the water. The sound is soft, but constant plip, 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 a steady rainfall made of centuries. It's strange, isn't it, that something so monumental could end, not with a bang, but a whisper. You think about how this iceberg started born from a glacier's slow breath, shaped by pressure and time, carried by currents for thousands of miles. It has traveled longer than most ships, longer than many lives. And now, after all that wandering, it simply dissolves into the sea that created it. That's the final fact for tonight. Every iceberg's journey ends where it began. Meltwater joins the ocean, evaporates into clouds, returns as snow, and begins the cycle anew. It's a full circle story written in temperature and time. But there's a quirk to this finale too. As icebergs melt, the fresh water forms a thin, less dense layer on the ocean's surface. Sunlight filters differently through it, bending light and color into shimmering halos. Mariners call it ice halo water, a natural prism that blurs the line between air and sea. Scientists still argue whether these halos affect local weather patterns or are merely a trick of optics. Either way, the sight is breathtaking, a pool of rainbow light circling the iceberg's last breath. You see one now faint but real. The sunlight bends across the water's surface, scattering gentle bands of pastel pink and green around the shrinking ice. It looks like the ocean itself is holding a farewell ceremony. You rest your chin on your arm, feeling the boat rock slowly with the swell. The air smells different again, sweeter, almost like wet stone mixed with salt. That's the scent of ancient air, finely freed, tiny bubbles rising from melting veins of ice. Each pop is a voice from prehistory, sighing one last time before merging with the modern sky. A piece the size of a house breaks off and rolls, sending waves in every direction. For a heartbeat chaos. Then calm again, always calm after the letting go. You think about everything the iceberg has seen: centuries of stars, migrations of whales, silent winters no human has ever known. And yet it doesn't cling to any of it. When its time comes, it just yields. No regret, no fear, just motion toward completion. There's wisdom in that. You imagine if people could do the same, carry everything they've witnessed, everything they've built, and then let it dissolve gracefully when the moment arrives. No resistance. Just gratitude for having drifted at all. The iceberg groans one last time, a deep sound from its core, like the final note of a song fading into silence. Then the noise stops. The air stills. What remains is only the sound of gentle waves against your boat. The sea has reclaimed its child. You lean over the edge, watching the final shards drift past. They sparkle in the sunlight, fragments of a vanished cathedral. A single bubble rises from below, large and slow, wobbling before it bursts at the surface. You can't help but smile. Even the end knows how to make art. There's movement beneath you, a faint shimmer as plankton bloom in the wake of fresh meltwater. Already new life is gathering around what remains. That's the secret no one tells you. When something disappears here, it feeds everything else. In the distance, a whale breaches its massive body, breaking the surface in a glittering arc before crashing back down with a sound like thunder. The wave it sends rolls toward you, lifting your small boat gently before letting it settle again. It feels like a benediction. You tilt your head back and watch the sky. Thin clouds stretch across the horizon, pale and high, like fingerprints left by the wind. The air feels lighter now, as if the whole ocean has exhaled. You whisper, "Thank you," not because the iceberg can hear, but because gratitude feels like the only proper response to a world that allows this much beauty, even in endings. The water sparkles where the iceberg once floated, only a faint swirl of slush remaining glinting like stardust in the sunlight. The sea has erased the monument, but not its memory. And maybe that's enough. You close your eyes. You can still feel the rhythm of it, the slow drift, the endless hum, the quiet persistence of something larger than yourself. It's all still there, just rearranged. Ice to water, water to air, sound to silence. Somewhere far away, another glacier calves a new iceberg, and the story begins again. You smile, letting the thought drift through you like a tide. Everything ends. Everything continues. Everything belongs. The sea is empty now, or maybe just open. The iceberg that kept you company for so long has slipped beneath the horizon, melted into its own reflection. What remains is the quiet, that vast cathedral-like hush that only the ocean can make. You float there for a while, letting the stillness seep into your bones. The sun has sunk lower again, painting everything in gold and lilac. The surface of the water looks like brushed metal catching flashes of orange from the fading light. You dip your fingers into it. It's not as cold anymore, just cool enough to remind you that this water once held a mountain. Somewhere far off, a gull cries. Then silence again. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full like a breath held by the world itself. You tilt your head back and look at the sky. The first stars are waking faint at first, then steady. They blink across the heavens like tiny lanterns lit by unseen hands. And you realize that this exact moment is what all those drifting icebergs have been moving toward. Not a destination, but a reunion. Ice returning to sea returning to sky. You can almost hear it if you listen closely, the faint trickle of meltwater joining the waves, the sigh of vapor rising into cloud, the whisper of snow falling somewhere far away. It's the sound of completion. You close your eyes and imagine yourself following that same cycle. You too are melting thoughts, dissolving breath, blending with the breeze body, softening into calm. The boundary between you and the sea blurs until there's no you left to separate. Only rhythm. Only tide. That's when you remember something simple and perfect. You've never really left land at all. You've just floated further inward to that still place beneath all the noise where everything ancient waits patiently for your attention. You take a slow breath. The air tastes faintly metallic, like the ocean's signature. Every inhale carries whispers of the world's oldest stories, snow from Greenland, salt from ancient seas, ash from long quiet volcanoes, stardust from forgotten constellations. You've been breathing history this whole time, and now it's time to rest. You look down one last time at the sea's surface. The last traces of the iceberg have spread out into ripples of light, tiny glimmers that dance and vanish. They look like constellations reflected upside down. You realize with a small, sleepy smile that you're floating between two skies, the one above and the one below, and both are infinite. It's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. Maybe that's the secret the ice knew all along. Your mind drifts toward that thought as the world slows. The sound of the sea becomes steady, gentle, a whisper threading through your heartbeat. Every breath grows longer. Every muscle unknots. The boat sways like a cradle, the ocean humming beneath it. The stars multiply until the whole dome of heaven glows. You think for a moment that the Milky Way looks like a frozen river. Maybe it is, Maybe the entire universe is made of melting and refreezing over and over again. Galaxies drift like icebergs through a cosmic sea, dissolving and forming anew. You smile again. Even the stars obey the same rhythm. The chill that once bit at your skin now feels tender like the cool side of a pillow. The night is absolute now. Quiet, vast, and kind. Somewhere deep inside the ocean, an iceberg the size of a city breaks free. You imagine it starting its long drift, unhurried, unknowing, ready to become everything it was meant to be. You whisper, "Good night," and the sea answers with a soft lap of water against your boat. Your eyes grow heavy. Thoughts fade like ripples, spreading into stillness. You feel yourself melting too, into the sound, into the rhythm, into the dark that isn't dark at all, but full of sleeping light. And just before you drift off completely, you think you hear it again, the faint hum of the ice. Only now it's not a song of loneliness. It's a lullaby, the same one it's been singing for 100,000 years. It says everything that freezes will flow again. Everything that goes will return. And with that, you finally let go. The sea holds you now the way it holds every story it's ever been told. The air has softened to velvet, the stars have dimmed to embers, and even your breath feels quieter, as if afraid to disturb the stillness. You can still sense the echo of the iceberg, though it's long gone. It lingers not as a shape, but as a feeling, a hush that wraps around you like a blanket. Let yourself breathe slower. In through the nose, cool and steady. Out through the mouth, gentle and long. Each breath matches the tide, each exhale another wave, slipping away. The cold you once felt is gone now, replaced by warmth, a quiet warmth that spreads from your chest to your fingertips, anchoring you in calm. The ocean beneath you is endless, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels like home. You picture its rhythm continuing long after you fall asleep, ice melting water, rising clouds, forming snow falling. The world remaking itself in silence. You belong to that same cycle, to the drifting, the returning, the soft dissolving. Your body grows heavier, your thoughts lighter. The edges of the world fade until only the sound of water remains. You can almost feel yourself sinking, not down, but inward, into rest, into stillness, into the deep blue quiet that waits beneath all things. If you listen closely, the hum is still there, faint and low, a lullaby written in salt and time. It doesn't rush you. It never has. It only whispers what you've known all along. The peace isn't found by holding on. It's found by letting go. So you do. You let go. And the ocean, gentle as ever, rocks you softly toward sleep.